If there were an organizational chart in the world of competitive bodybuilding, you would be perched pretty safely at the very top of it. When did you decide to make bodybuilding your life's work?
Well, I started competing back in the late 60s, early 70s. And actually, after I was done competing, I started judging locally in Pittsburgh. So from there, I started judging nationally. Back when I competed, it was no NPC, it was AAU. So I won like 15 contests in the AAU and started judging. And after that, I met some people and we talked about forming the NPC because the AAU at that time was breaking up sports. Each sports federation had to develop their own federation. So it was back in 1981. I still hadn't decided that was what I was going to do permanently. I wanted to start it, but I didn't know how long I would stay at it. And then actually decided that the only way to really make it big is to quit my regular job and do this full time and go on the road and build it.
And build it you have. In 1981, the National Physique Committee is born, which has since become the preeminent amateur competitive physique organization in the United States.
I like the first part, in the world.
In the world, and we'll get to that later. But it's an interesting point because it's a very complex organization. There are chairmen in different parts of the country. There's representation all around the world, and it's its own private economy in a way. I've always said this industry is like it's like an entrepreneurial playground in a way. Within this NPC, within this organization, there are countless people that make their living in dozens and dozens of different ways. And all of that starts with what you've created. I'd love to just get your sense on, do you ever reflect back to where you started and just how far this whole thing has come?
Sure, at times I think about it, and I remember meeting Joe and Ben Weider, way back actually met them in the 70s and the 80s. One before we changed over to NPC, I knew them earlier. But in my wildest dreams, no, I probably never thought it was going to ever get this big.
The last decade or so has been rapid growth. I think even beyond any reasonable expectation. The advent of the new competitive divisions. There was a time when this industry or the bodybuilding world was foreign to quote unquote regular people, non-competitors. They would look at the NPC and they would look at it as something completely foreign, removed from anything they could ever participate in. Now, with the advent of figure and physique divisions and bikini divisions, this whole thing has grown to a place where our friends, our neighbors, our hairstylists, our school teachers, people in all walks of life will come up to me and you and everyone else and talk about their best friend who's going to compete in a bikini competition for the first time. So it's infiltrated really the world at large, no longer just people who walk around with wide lats and big quads anymore.
Absolutely. These new divisions, as you said, have really opened it up. I mean, it's amazing. I went to my doctor's office the other day for a checkup. One of the nurses working in the office competes in the bikini division. So again, that would never happen back in 1981 when we had men's and women's bodybuilding. But with the new divisions, it's just opened it up to everybody. But it's still a family thing. It's still something that, of course, there's people here that never would have came to a bodybuilding show, but it's still friends and family. That's what's so great about the amateur sport. They come to see their friend or your neighbor's son maybe competing in a physique contest. Now, you don't even know what a physique contest is, but you're going to go because you know Bobby next door is competing.
That's right.
So this is going to expose you not only to that division of our sport, but to the bodybuilding world also.
When you build something of this size, of this magnitude, in any industry, there's going to be times where it's going to be challenging. You're going to have a target on your back. It's the nature of commerce. It's the nature of business in the world.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to know, what have been the greatest challenges as you've built this thing? Because I'd imagine there's been times where it hasn't always been easy.
No, it's not always easy. It's probably the biggest challenge is just trying to keep everybody happy. Because even with some of my district chairmen, as you well know, some guys, they think they will have to do something better than the next guy. Trying to keep everybody on the same playing field. let them know that we're all here for one thing, the NPC. We're one family, so it shouldn't be one promoter has an advantage over another. One promoter doesn't want to work with another guy because he finds that he's in competition with them. But that's probably about the biggest one.
There was a time when this industry was considered taboo. It was something people just couldn't get comfortable with. Even those who competed in other sports and other walks of life, people from Hollywood, football players, baseball players, there was a wide divide. And as you've grown this, as Joe Weider grew this, it evolved to a place where everybody is connected to this industry now. I've seen you personally sit side by side with guys like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Triple H and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the list goes on and on. Big celebrities the world over have latched on to the energy of this organization and lean on it in many, many ways to support their projects, to connect with their fans. But I'd have to imagine when you think back 30, 40, 50 years ago, when it was considered taboo to even have muscles in the movies or to even relate to this industry, on many levels, the whole thing is turned around.
Absolutely, yeah. Not that I watch soap operas, but sometimes I got home in the afternoon, my wife's watching them. The guys on the soap operas can't wait to take off their shirts.
Right.
Back in the day, none of the soap opera people took off. Now the young guys are all built, they're built like our physique guys. I mean, they all have pecs, they all have delts, they all have, abs. So it's really amazing to see how it's changed and getting even to the sports thing. I mean, everybody works out with weights now. Being from Pittsburgh, a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan in the University of Pittsburgh, my friend was a strength coach at both places for a while. And it's amazing that when I would go to visit him at the training facility, how many of the football players actually knew who I was. I'm going there hoping to meet this guy or that guy over, from the Steelers, sure. And they knew who Jim Manion was, right, because they all work out with weights and they read the magazines. So it is quite amazing.
How big is the NPC? And give us some context, because not everybody appreciates the gravity of what this thing has become. How big is it in terms of what you can share? Memberships on a given Saturday night. Somebody's told me that there's Saturday nights throughout the year where there's 8, 9, 10, 11 events going on in cities around the country, sometimes around the world, that are tied and all come back to what you're building here. How large is this organization?
Well, we probably do over 300 amateur shows a year, and with the IFBB Pro League, we're probably going to do, I think last year we did 120, we'll probably do 140 professional shows. Most of them are tied into NPC shows. Some aren't. Some are worldwide. Right now we're in 20 different countries with IFBB. So it is big, extremely big. And like you said, there'll be certain weekends you can have a show in Missouri and have one in Kansas, a couple, a state away or so. And we have so many competitors that it's amazing.
When you look back at this whole process, I know you're not the nostalgic type. You stay focused, and you let people like me talk about how big things have gotten, and you just keep your head down and do the work. That's always been your style. What are some of the bigger challenges, just in general, the bigger challenges that you faced? I'd imagine that it's been complicated at times. I'd imagine that there's been moments where the work, as it relates to juggling family life, I know family has always been very important to you. Has it ever just reached a place where, because there's organizations much smaller than this that have much larger bodies of leadership than this organization. You guys have kept it as a family business to some extent. You have chairmen around the country, but it's a family business at the end of the day. And you've always managed to make it work. And I'd imagine that's been difficult at times.
Well, yeah, obviously my family's involved a lot. I'm very heavily into family, as you know, but I consider my family the NPC also. And luckily, I have an understanding wife who understands and travels with me, because I don't think I could do this without her traveling with me. So that's very important. And then obviously my son's involved now, my grandson. So it's definitely a family business.
Not everybody gets to work with you or sit on the couch with you while you're watching a Steelers game. Not everybody knows Jim Manion. People have perceptions of you and your style, and that's the nature of what you do. For anyone out there who's watching and potentially doesn't get that chance to get to know you the way a lot of people, or some people, or I should say a small list of people have gotten to know you. What are some of the things you'd like for them to know about you that perhaps they just don't get?
Well, as you said, I think that happens to a lot of people. They get perceived as being maybe standoffish, and he's so hard to talk to, or he's a mean guy. And it's, I'm probably the most accessible official there is in the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, half the country, if not all the country, has my cell phone number. Some people have it, I don't even want to have it. But, I'm very accessible. It could be a Saturday night, and I'm not at a contest, but we have shows going on, pro shows around the world, around the country, and my phone will ring, and I'm out to dinner with civilians, as you just like to say, normal people who don't compete in events. My phone will ring, and Debbie will say to me, "Geez, you have to take that." And I go, "Absolutely, I do." And I pick up the phone, whether it's I'm talking to Big Steve, Sandy, Tim, they're all calling me, let me know what's going on at the event. If I wasn't here today, Steve would be calling and say, "Hey, boss, pre-judging's done. It went well, everything went good, the show's going well, Tim's doing a great job." So that's all I want people to know. You judge people on what they do and how they treat other people, and that's how my life is. I treat people the way they treat me, and that's, I'm sure, how everybody wants to be treated.
When you're sitting there at an NPC National Championship, an event that used to have 150 or 200 competitors on a big night decades ago.
Oh yeah, we thought that was big.
And that was a big show, and now you have 1,000 plus participants, and sometimes even higher at some of the other shows. When you go to a Mr. Olympia and you sit in an arena, the same arena that hosts major sporting events, and it's packed with rabid bodybuilding and fitness fans, when you look around and you see this level of sponsor, hundreds of sponsors will sponsor this year's Olympia, when you see the fact that this sport is giving away nearly $1.5 million this year in prize money at this year's Olympia, when you look at all of it and you think back to your time with Joe Weider and Ben Weider and that whole journey of evolution, what are some of the things you think about? Because I'd imagine it has to be deeply gratifying how far you've taken this.
Well, actually, when you're at the event, I really don't have time to think about that. It's like I don't know if you've noticed me at the Olympia, I'll sit for a while. I get up, I walk around, I'll go backstage, I'll go. It's sometime later on when I'm sitting quietly by myself that I think about it. And even going back to what you said in the beginning, how many industries have come out of our industry?
Right.
I mean, from swimsuits to tanning to clothing to supplements. I mean, there's so many industries inside of our industry. And truthfully, when I used to sit with Ben and Joe, I would try to learn everything I could from them and what they've done to build the sport, because without them, obviously, I wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, none of us would be here. But, I also watched how Ben especially interacted with people sometimes that he really didn't want to interact with, and I've learned to be able to do that myself. And that's sometimes not an easy thing, because I grew up a little different than that. If you didn't like somebody, you didn't like them. So I realized that you don't have to like someone to do business with them. So I really learned a lot from being around Ben with that aspect.
For those who have been around the events the last couple of years, we've noticed a relatively new face on the scene. He happens to be your grandson, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
He's become very involved in the NPC. We've seen him at judges' tables. We see him around. He seems to be doing a great job learning the NPC in this industry. And we've also noticed, those of us who know you have noticed that you've taken great pride in that. And you've enjoyed assimilating him into this industry and teaching him. Tell us a little bit about Tyler, because we get the sense that it's almost given you some renewed excitement for all of this.
Well, I mean, I think anybody would be proud when you have your grandkids involved in anything. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have Jam involved for the last, how old is Jam now? Jam's going to be 55. He's been involved for 30, 40 years. I don't know, whatever it may be. He's been around it. And my granddaughter, she's very interested too, but she's finishing school. Tyler is very involved. He's probably going to go back for his master's, trying to get him to concentrate on that a little bit. I want him to get his master's degree. But he's also heavily involved into our sport because he really likes it. He's become a great judge, and he kind of grew up with it. JM grew up with it too, but at a different time when JM was young. So Tyler kind of came in at the right moment and got to be around the right people So he's caught on very fast. He's like a sponge. He just soaks everything in. But the thing that you have to learn, it's not just about judging. I could sit there and judge a contest, and it's learning to deal with other people, learning people's personalities in our industry. There are a lot of different personalities, as you know, that you have to deal with. So teaching someone, whether it be my grandson, my granddaughter, whoever, teaching them to deal with different people on different levels, because it's not, you can't treat everybody the same. There's always a gray area, there's always this, there's always that. So, but as far as Tyler, yeah, I'm very proud of what he's become, what he's doing. And like I said, my granddaughter will be graduating this year, so she also wants to get involved, but I think she's going to be doing a lot of work into the office, because our office work is, Teresa, we have another person working with Teresa, but we've become so big with doing the Pro League and the NPC, it's just,
I'd imagine in any industry, it's dealing with people. In the industry of fitness and bodybuilding, it's challenging. There are strong personalities. The nature of this industry is that it is comprised of very strong, highly resolved people who have very strong opinions about the way things should be. So I would imagine that your work in juggling those types of personalities is challenging. But we've always said, those of us who know you always said, that's what you're greatest at, is managing those types of people. But going forward, I'd love to just know what's next. What's next on the plan? Because it seems like you are in a constant state of evolution. It never stops. Whether it's creating new divisions, whether it's creating new events, whether it's expanding memberships, whether it's expanding territories, you continue to evolve and grow this thing to something remarkable. What's next? What can people look for from Jim Manion?
Right now, I don't have anything particularly in mind, but you always have to keep your mind open in business. You always have to try new things. Listen, other people have come to me with a lot of these great ideas. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and some of them I've used. So that's basically what I keep an open mind to what people have suggestions, and I keep an open mind to what's going on around me, and try to see what we can do. I don't know how many more divisions we can develop, but I'm sure there may be something down the road. The idea is just to keep moving forward and keep an open mind.